welcome to Bad Ideas, the show where we look at misfires, mistakes, and miscalculations from all throughout history.
I'm Tony Southcott.
And I'm Albert Berg. Tony has our bad idea for this week. What are we talking about, Tony?
We're talking about Shia Labeouf's campaign for He Will Not Divide Us.
Who is
his
he?
art project. Shia Labeouf is an actor. He's an American actor in films such as Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull.
No, I meant who is the he in the He Will Not Divide Us? Or is it Shia LaBeouf? Is he talking about himself?
No, Shia is trying not to divide us. He is talking about President Donald Trump.
Oh.
Shortly after the Trump administration's unlikely victory in November of 2016, Shia LaBeouf and his friends decided that they were going to make an art piece, basically where people could go and talk to a webcam. It started on the day he was inaugurated. They would go to this place outside or inside of New York City, and they would talk to a webcam, and it would just be people like sitting there saying, "He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us." And they kept saying it over and over again like a chant. There were a lot of people in tears just crying, and it created some kind of compelling reality TV for a little bit.
This sounds like people who have read The Secret one too many times, Tony.
It was outside the Museum of the Moving Image. He invited all these people here, and he said, "He Will Not Divide Us" is a show of resistance or insistence, opposition, or optimism, guided by the spirit of each individual participant and the community. So it's not really the most laser-guided thing that he's ever done, but he wanted to make something so that people could feel welcome and connected and undivided by the Trump administration.
Hey, compared to Occupy Wall Street, this is the most laser-focused thing a liberal has ever done.
Pretty much. On the first day, people came and they did their "He Will Not Divide Us" chant. They spoke with tears about the important things in their life, and they really enjoyed the idea of this, and they thought it would be a great way to kind of voice their opinion over the next 4 years or possibly 8 years. And
I'm sure they were really, really not hoping for 8 years.
Yeah. Well, who knows what's going to happen with that? I have a feeling it's not going to be 8 years, but that's just a personal feeling. But he proved us wrong already.
That is the thing about President Donald J. Trump, which is a thing that you can say and have it be true in the world now, is that
as he goes and meets with international leaders and has the American flag touching the North Korean flag and shakes hands with like an imperial despot.
You just can't say peace. When he says a thing, you can say there's no way, but then you think, but he did become president somehow.
As the former head of the CIA says that the most important connection between North Korea and Donald Trump is Dennis Rodman, because he knows both of them intimately and is the only American to have such knowledge of Kim Jong-un.
Hey, now, this is not the Trump bashing show.
No, I'm not bashing Trump there. I'm just saying times are weird.
It is a weird time.
Now, this might sound like a nice thing for a community still in shock over their presidential loss, but the ensuing internet trolling hit new and unprecedented scales.
What?
I'm telling you guys, this is going to get weird.
So, one day, I want to break down before we go further. He's just set up a camera on probably something a little bit more sophisticated than a tripod, but it's just outside.
To a wall, from what I can tell.
He's told everybody where it's at, and anybody can come and talk to this camera, and it's broadcast to the world, and it's meant to be something against Donald Trump. And you're telling me that this is going to go wrong in some way.
I am saying that he thought that the goodwill of people would keep this from turning into an absolute mess.
I can't fathom what's going to possibly happen. I'm on the edge of my seat waiting for this wonderful show of goodwill to go awry, Tony.
Well, on day one, trolls from 4chan and Reddit started to infiltrate the stream. In the background, members of the 4chan message political board, our poll, came and put a sign that said the Museum of Kek. And Kek is basically a weird thing from World of Warcraft. Whenever someone from the Alliance talks to somebody on the Horde, it garbles the message so you can't see what your enemies are saying. But LOL, laughing out loud, always turns out as Kek.
Okay.
So it's just like a version of LOL. The people that post on poll, 4chan poll, which we'll call poll from now on, they actually say they're from Kekistan and all this. And it's just like a weird meme that they have that they've built into their message board.
And we should say that the people on 4chan support Donald Trump sort of, I think, because he's like the weirdest possible thing that could happen, and it's real now. And maybe they're also a little bit like right-wingy and racist, but basically because they're trolls.
I'm sure there's a fair amount of right-wing people on there and everything, but mostly it's trolls, I think. Like, they're the ones that, like, push the Pepe meme. They're the ones that push all these different memes that you see online. And they're notorious for messing with voting. Like, whenever they had that Bodie McBoatface thing in the UK, they were the ones who helped rig that. Whenever they had a challenge where the most people rallied to vote could send Pitbull to any place in the country, they sent him to the furthest Walmart in Alaska. Like, they just do things like that, where they'll, like, if you let them have a little bit of space to work in, they're going to push it as far as they can.
I believe they also sent Taylor Swift to a deaf college, which kind of jokes on them, because deaf people can still enjoy music. So
true.
But and she still, went, by the way.
It's still a funny idea to have her go to a deaf college.
Yes.
And I want to say right now, I'm not promoting trolling. I can find it pretty entertaining, but like there's times where it definitely goes too far. But this is trolling on a level that is kind of unprecedented, and I felt like it needed to be shared.
Okay, so what happened? Beyond them obviously photobombing this very serious, heartfelt effort, where does it evolve from here?
Well, it started when the first people started walking up to the camera and they were saying, "He will not divide us, he will not divide us." And then they walk up and they say, "Hitler did nothing wrong," or various other white supremacist sayings. Images of Pepe the Frog started appearing on posters. All of this happened while Shia Labeouf oversaw the flag. He was there watching all of this. And anytime somebody started to troll, he actually started getting pretty physical and started pushing people out of there. One of the ones that seemed to be, that infuriated him the most was a guy who walked up with a sign that was, "Pizzagate is real. Shia LaBeouf is just a rich white liberal that doesn't care about the working class." Like, he was just saying that into the camera and you just see Shia LaBeouf run over and shove him out of frame.
But he still hasn't divided us, right?
No, he hasn't divided us at all. By day 3, he was loudly shouting in the ears of the counter-protesters. Anytime someone would come up and say a message that he didn't like, he just started screaming right in their ears, pushing them around. And when one was saying some highly racial things, he actually started licking their face repeatedly.
Now that is an excellent response, I think, to just about anybody. It's non-violent, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's considered sexual assault, but still.
Well, I guess that could be true, but I wasn't thinking of it as in that sense. Nobody really wants to have their face licked by a stranger in public, and yet you're not actually hurting them. So if someone does, like, hit you with something that you don't like, maybe face licking is the way to go.
Maybe. Also, there are a lot of highlights from these strange things that happen on this stream. You can find them online. My personal favorite comes from Internet Historian, who broke this down in a great way. But you can see some of the strangeness of these streams that was captured. I imagine watching it live would have been very compelling. On day 5, over a misunderstanding, Shia LaBeouf accidentally assaulted one of his supporters and was promptly arrested.
Nobody else prosecuted him? The guys who were standing there saying that he will not divide us? Those people are the one who are like, "Well, no, Shia, you've gone too far because you punched me."
Yeah, well...
The 4chan people are like, "No, I totally get it, man. I deserve to be hit."
When you're trolling, you're trying to troll for a reaction. Like, it's not like troll under a bridge. It's like fishing trolling, where you're trying to get a bite. So if that's the reaction you want, and you get Shia LaBeouf to shove you, you kind of did what you were hoping to do. At this point, the museum put up a wall and only let small crowds into the outdoor exhibit. Some people have commented on how ironic it was that all of a sudden they built a wall to keep people out.
I'm sure they were so happy about, though, like when you point out people's hypocrisies, the great thing about humanity is that people just, acknowledge it and change their ways.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they just immediately, shift. On February 10th, the exhibit was shut down and moved to New Mexico. It only lasted a few days there before someone flashed a gun during the stream, as well as gunshots being heard in the background. They decided that the attention that this was drawing was not good for the museum where it was posted, and they decided to shut it down.
Shia LaBeouf is not on site at this point, right?
He was on site in Albequerque.
Okay. He's posted bail. He's gotten out of jail.
He got out of jail fairly quickly. Undeterred, Shia LaBeouf and his friends came up with a new plan. And this is where the trolling hits entirely new levels. The stream was now simpler. There were no people, just a white flag that said, "He will not divide us," blowing under an open sky. There's no landmarks, no identifiable features, just a flag against the blue background of the sky.
This sounds pretty foolproof.
Shia had beaten the trolls, and he could continue his art project in peace.
I would say it's less confrontational, right?
Yeah,
like
it's definitely a lot less confrontational. Like, it's not the most interesting thing to watch, but like he knows what happens when you let people just be animals in front of the camera.
Yes. He knows from personal experience.
Only problem was he hadn't defeated them at all. The location was not disclosed, but members of Pol were determined and numerous. They watched the stream, noting for the exact time for sunset. This eliminated 1/3 of America, as they knew that it had to be in nearly the Eastern time zone or on the very fringe of it. So they eliminated a lot of America there. They focused on all the ambient noise, noting that there were frogs in the background, indicating that there was nearby water. They looked at cloud patterns next to live Doppler feeds. They also kept a close watch on Twitter to see if anybody had spotted Shia and where he might actually be at the time. The first major break in the case came when people spotted a plane in the background. They immediately looked at flight patterns across the country and tried to match any possible path. This was a huge task, as hundreds of planes were flying at any given point over the eastern third of the U.S. As luck would have it, a second plane passed through, allowing for even better location hunting.
So these guys are Sherlocking this thing all to pieces.
Yeah, like there's just a whole community on 4chan and Discord where they are trying to take every possible clue and figure out where this thing is.
I can think of a way to get around this, but I guess it's not as raw and gritty as the live flag. If you had a delay that you didn't tell people about, or, you know, just didn't have the flag outside, like you put it on a green screen and green screened in the sky, you could get around it
that would
way.
actually be pretty funny if they had it in a studio somewhere doing that.
Yeah. Have a plane fly over occasionally just to, like, mess with them.
Have, like, a UFO show up just to get hits.
Oh, that would be even better, yes. Your idea is better, Tony. You're in charge of the flag now.
A random Twitter post from Tennessee showed a young woman taking a selfie with Shia, and this locked the probable location down even more. TMZ also released that he had been fly fishing in Tennessee in the area as well. Using these tips, along with star mapping and aviation charts, the trolls locked in on Greenville, Tennessee. Members of the astronomy team at Pol were able to figure out the exact angle of the camera by matching how the flagpole measured up against stars and constellations so that they could get the perfect viewing angle. Then they took multiple plane contrails and determined a few small areas down to a few acres where it could possibly be at. One of the trolls in the area got in his truck and looked at the specific areas that were charted and started honking his horn. Sure enough, the horn could be heard on the stream. People watching told him as he got hotter and colder with the horn. With some well-coordinated effort, they spotted the flag.
I gotta say, this part, like, this is maybe the most fascinating stream content that you could have. Like, yeah, it's not the purpose of the stream, but inadvertently he has created some very compelling content. Most people don't engage with their favorite TV shows on this level.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you're looking at, like, the first major pieces of art from the Trump era, you could honestly call it that because of the reaction it caused. It's not exactly art that's pretty, it's not exactly anything like that, but he incited a reaction for sure. Under darkness, agents from Pol snuck in, took the flag, and raised a MAGA hat while the stream rolled on. In 38 hours and 14 minutes, 4chan had captured Shia's flag.
And then it ended, right? That's the end of the story?
No, this time Shia Labeouf decided to go international. He had the flag placed on the top of a 5-story building in Liverpool. Members of Pol staked out the facility looking for weaknesses and access to the roof. It was under armed guard, locked doors, and closed-circuit surveillance.
So, wait, I want to clarify now. Now Donald Trump won't divide Liverpool, England.
No, Liverpool can't be divided by Donald.
Right. America, lost cause, but he's going over there and saying, guys, he won't divide y'all, right? Please, say no.
The guards and Shia himself were watching 4chan, hoping for intel. But through coordination on Discord and other apps, the Pol team actually started a false information campaign to distract the guards. Also, they started having everyone apply for jobs at the place where this was at. It was an art museum, and basically completely filled up the inbox with thousands and thousands of applications all at once. So everybody was just getting pounded on their email feeds and not actually seeing everything coming in. Other teams on 4chan were working on various drones to attack the flag. One had a flamethrower attachment. The other had a bucket of paint to just dump on the camera, and there were other prototypes as well, such as a weed whacker prototype. Some people on the other side of the street tried to use a high-powered laser to burn the flag, but it didn't actually work. You just saw the red all over the flag for a little bit on the stream.
This is This is a new tactic. So instead of hiding the flag, he said, okay, here it is, but I do have security around it.
Yep.
I like how he's evolving here. I think that there's something interesting about the various iterations of the flag and the reaction that it's causing.
Yeah, and the locations, too. You just go straight up international with it.
With a protest of the American president from an American actor, again, that rings a little wrong to me. I don't understand that one.
Other plans were floated, such as building trust with the guards and claiming to have press passes, but ultimately people just scaled the 5-story building and tried to take the flag down. They originally were going to scale the building next to it and take the 4-meter jump across, but they decided against that and decided to just straight up go up this building because they were going to go up to the roof of the other building, like using the elevator, but they found that it would just be easier to fly up there. The only problem is they forgot to bring scissors or a knife, and the flagpole was actually fashioned to the roof with zip ties. And since they were on closed circuit, the guards were running at them, and they just had to bail before they could steal the flag.
And this is the best game of capture the flag I've ever heard of.
Easily. Interesting thing about those guys, not a single one of them was ever caught. You can see them on camera, like they've got their faces covered. They look like they're definitely there to steal something, but none of them ever got caught.
All right. Victory for the trolls, sort of.
Yeah. It actually was a victory, though, because the fact organization that ran that museum did not want the flag on their building anymore. They cited security concerns and told Shia Labeouf to move it once again.
Why does he keep targeting museums? I don't understand this part of the plan.
It's an art piece. It's an avant-garde art piece. Is the way he looks at it. The flag was once again moved, this time on a flat background with muted audio in a white room. Pohl decided that they were going to gear up one more time. Using the natural light from the window, they determined the time zone and found that it was still in Europe. After some more technical wizardry, they found that one of the founders of the project, Luke Turner, lived in France. They simply looked up his house number and shined a light in the window, and there the flag was. In all of 3 hours and 58 minutes, the flag was found once again.
I gotta say, now we're talking about somebody's house.
Yeah. And that's actually, that seems like sort of a limit to them. Like, instead of breaking in and taking it, 4chan just got kind of bored of it.
Okay, I was very worried about where this was going, because when it's on public space, it's one thing, but if you're gonna have people, I know there are incidents of swatting that happen from people like this. I know that doxing is a major pastime of people who get annoyed,
especially on 4chan.
Yes, and some Redditors as well. And I'm actually surprised at the level of restraint they apparently showed, given that this was a private residence.
Yeah, and there were some things that they did, like they ordered hundreds of pizza to the house. People tried to hack the wireless router to just bring down the stream, like things like that, and it wasn't really working.
Those are, I don't want to say those are fine, but again, better than
I was expecting. It's better than breaking into the house.
And if you have a bunch of pizza, maybe you can do something like take it to your local homeless shelter and turn it into a positive.
Yeah, so it was dumb stuff, but it wasn't like they broke in and stole the flag. And especially because they really kind of won. The most exciting thing that happened on that stream for days was whenever a fly flew into the picture. You're talking about what might as well just be a JPEG image. Like, there's no wind to move the flag. There's nothing going on. It's just some dude's office with the flag hanging on the wall and nothing else.
Yeah, the other thing is that, the whole "he will not divide us" message, it's ironic on the one hand to think about, how divisive the flag sort of ended up being, but honestly, it's not really Donald Trump that divided us. We've been divided for a while, guys. He's the magnifying glass.
Yeah.
I think the fascination with Donald Trump as a character is not unfounded, but also maybe it sort of clouds people to all of the stuff that is also going on in the country. And this just seems like another sort of symptom of that. The fact that it didn't go anywhere, I'm disappointed by this ending. We need a big... This poor flag, just its sad self sitting in this office. I want I want somebody to post a version of this in a public place, but it's made out of concrete and titanium. and it's just like impossible to move. That's the
Yeah,
next
it's like an
iteration.
easy color so that whenever people spray paint on it, they just add another layer.
Exactly. Yes. Just you know what? Just have a public flagpole. Just have that. I'm sure that can go bad in any way.
It's interesting because currently the project actually doesn't involve that flag. You can go to the He Will Not Divide Us website, and they basically just installed a webcam at the Museum of Art in Lodz, Poland.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a webcam facing a street. Like, there's nobody around it. It's just a webcam, like randomly staring out from the Museum of Art in Poland.
Again, in not America.
Yeah.
That's the part that's baffling to me. Although it does, if that webcam is just showing a street, I assume 4chan at some point must have been trolling that as well.
Yeah, I'm sure that like they'll probably end up like spray painting over it or something dumb like that. But it's so innocuous and so far from what they were trying to do at the beginning that it's just not effective.
Is that it, Tony? Is that the bad idea for this week?
Oh, the bad idea for this week is... Oh, it's hard to say because the divisiveness of the current political climate is a very bad idea in itself. It leads to a lot of people not having rational discussion, not being able to kind of convince themselves that people of the opposite opinion are still people. It's really weird to watch as everybody is transformed into the other over very small differences. And it also helps to not be Shia Labeouf. That's kind of a bad idea right now whenever you're trying to do something like this. He's interesting, but very divisive, and people think he's a very, very smug weirdo, like whenever he was wearing the bag over his head. He's just the type of guy that 4chan, if they have the ability, they're going to target him.
I will say about Shia, I don't think he's necessarily being, what's the word, fake with his interest in these weird art projects. I think he's trying to express himself creatively, and he just picks the weirdest stuff to do. I don't buy into this, like, well, he's just some guy who's bored and full of himself. I mean, that's probably plays into it somewhat, but every artist, the impulse to create something and say, look, everybody should look at this, it's great, is always sort of egocentric, and it's, you know, at some point in its inception.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like whenever every artist is like, hey, check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/humanechoes.
You
might be able to support that sort of art.
Or if we tell people to like and subscribe, or what are we saying about the political climate, really?
I know, like, it's so shallow whenever you're like, if you could leave a comment on this and tell us what you think about it, like, we'd greatly appreciate that.
Or if you're listening on iTunes or one of the other podcast apps, if you tell a friend, again, about us, this is not the kind of thing we would do, but we're saying if we did it, that would be incredibly self-centered and come from a place of pure ego.
And would probably end up getting us trolled by 4chan.
No doubt. I actually do expect that to happen, Tony. I expect someone to come in and with the Pepe, you know, what do you call it? Pepe avatar, and be commenting about how great, you know, Donald J. Trump is. And that's fine. One thing I love about the current political climate is that it does reveal how many differences we do have. I don't think having differences is the problem here. It's just not being able to talk to other people who have different ideas in a rational way. And this definitely did not fix that.
No, it did not. It was a fun ride while it lasted, though.
Yes, indeed.
Anyway, I hope you guys all have an excellent week. We will be back next week with more bad ideas.
Bye.